So welcome everyone to the second Rex Crossley Awards of the term 2021-2022. So first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rex Crossley. Rex Crossley is an award provided by the IFMSA in recognition of the work and achievement of the best activity done by IFMSA national member organizations, NMOs, and the award activity given to one who has meaningful impact in their communities. The award is named after Mr. Rex Crossley, one of the founders of the International Federation of Medical Student Associations. So we're gonna have the top 8 activities be presented to you. In case you are unfamiliar with the term activity, it's an umbrella term used within the International Federation of Medical Student Association to express any effort done as a project, as a campaign, as an advocacy effort organized by the national member organization of the IFMSA. So we have received 40 applications of the top activities organized by the NMOs. The process of Rex Crossley has been done by the program team. It took around 14 days of checking the enrollment of these activities and evaluated, and each activity has been evaluated by 2 program coordinator or one of the program team, core team, based on the activity design, on the evaluation, innovation, creativity. And today you're gonna see the top 8. So the event's gonna be presenting 4 activities at the beginning, and then we're gonna have a program promotion, and then we're gonna have 4 activities, the 4 other activities. Each presentation will be 5 minutes and 3 minutes question from the judges. I would like to remind you that the awards are gonna be for basically all the 8 who have made it here so far are winners, and gonna be having their activity published in the MSI, as well as the top 3 will be announced at August meeting, final plenary, and the first prize will get 150 euros in recognition of their effort and to fund up their project directly to their NMO or national member organization. So first of all, I'm gonna give the mic to the judges to introduce themselves, and then we're gonna move on to the first activity. So Michelle, the mic is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle, the IFMSA Regional Director for Asia Pacific. So I'm so happy to be here as a judge, and looking at all the activities so far. Like, it's very promising that we have such activities in IFMSA that can be shared like in our federation, and also hopefully more recognized internationally in other spaces. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Moving on to Mustafa.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Mustafa. I'm the IFMSA Vice President for Public Relations and Communications. And it's an immense pleasure to be here today to be one of the judges to these activities. First of all, congratulations on making it so far and being chosen out of all the submissions. And I'm really looking forward to the impacts that your projects have on your communities, and looking forward on how you can grow those impacts as well. So looking forward to this today and to see all the activities.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. Moving on to Zain. The mic is yours.
Thank you, Hussam. Hello, everyone. I'm Zain Thanna from IFMS Iraq, and I'm currently serving as Vice President for Capacity Building. It's truly heartwarming when you see how much impact young medical students can achieve around the world. Just by being here, it's a huge achievement. Congratulations for everyone who just submitted their activity. It doesn't matter that much if you won the first, the second, the third place, or you didn't win anything, because by the end of the day, what it truly matters is the motivation, the impact, and everything you have been achieving so far. It's truly great. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to see your presentations.
Thank you so much, Zain, and thank you for the amazing speech. Now, we're going to start with the first activity. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so whenever you're ready, we can start the timer.
So, hello everyone, I'm Jose from ANEM Portugal, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about my MedPal clinical interview. If you could pass the slide, please. So, let's start by giving some background. So, most medical education activities are mostly unidirectional in the sense that they are given by a presenter to participants, and most of the activities' benefits are there for the participants. Also, there isn't really a chance for the presenter and the participants to create a bond, and that may be a reflection on the fact that most students really lack some investment and interest in medical education as a whole. Furthermore, there is given a theoretical approach to practical skills. For example, the clinical interview, which is a clinical skill and a practical skill in nature, is mostly taught in a theoretical manner. Lastly, medical education strategies are constantly evolving, which means that by sticking to traditional methods, that may lead to stagnation or even regression. Peer-assisted learning is a proven and innovative teaching method that has yet to be implemented in our medical school, Universidade do Minho's Medical School. And with all that in mind, we designed, if you could pass the slide, please. We designed My MedPal, which is not only a fun one with peer-assisted learning, but is also an activity for students, of students, and by students. And in this activity, we can divide our participants in two categories: trainers, which are students from the 4th and 5th medical years, clinical years, and trainees, students from the 3rd medical year, which are just now starting their clinical practice and learning skills such as clinical interview. If you could pass the slide, please. So we can also separate our goals and objectives between trainers and trainees. So for trainers, our goals would be to develop an interest in peer education in at least 50% of our trainers, developing soft skills in at least 90% of our trainers, and revisiting knowledge on clinical interview in at least 70% of our trainers. The next slide, please. For trainees, our goals would be to improve trainees' confidence in their clinical interview skills, as well as their comfort with a clinical interview. And we are assessing this by deploying a pre-session and a post-session form that asks students these questions. Next slide, please. So how did we do it? Trainers are tasked with creating a brief presentation on clinical interview, as well as some general tips and advice, and the session starts by trainers delivering this presentation to trainees. Next slide, please. Then a trainee is assigned a trainer, and they go to a room which is designed to simulate a medical office and therefore a medical appointment. Also, trainers are given a script for them to act as a patient and to present a disease or an illness, and they act as standardized patients. And trainees then interview the trainer and are given feedback on their performance, as well as some tips on how to improve. Then they exchange roles, and trainees get to be interviewed with a different script and different illness by the trainers, and they get to see the advice that they were given put to action. Next slide, please. So how did we fare? Well, we think we have fulfilled all of our objectives when it comes to trainers. All of our trainers claim to have developed an interest in peer education, to have developed soft skills, as well as to have revisited knowledge on clinical interview when asked on the post-session form. Next slide, please. Furthermore, when it comes to trainees and our outcomes, from the pre-session form to the post-session form, students' average reported confidence went from a 5.4 to a 6.9 on a 1 to 10 scale, and their average reported comfort went from a 6 to a 7.3 on the post-session form. Furthermore, we got to discuss and present this activity to our school's president, which we think is a really important step in making our school aware of medical education strategies, which is one of the problems we have identified. Lastly, when it comes to this activity's sustainability, the activity is pretty much self-sustainable. It is cost-free. There will always be a need for students to learn the clinical interview. And lastly, our trainers pool is constantly being renewed and put together because trainees are more likely to engage, just 1 second, sorry, are more likely to engage as trainers in the future when they get to the clinical years. So last slide, please. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation.
Thank you.
Feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. Moving on to the judges. If you have any question, please raise your hand.
If you could just put to the last slide where we have the contacts in case any of the people want to ask us any question. Thank you. Okay.
So we have Zain and Mustafa. Okay, Zain, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much for the presentation and congratulations on your activity. My only question is that what is the criteria for the selection of the trainers? And if you have any minimal requirement or some sort of a quality assurance for the people who are training the young medical students within the activity?
So if there is any thank you for the question, first of all. So you're asking if there is any criteria for the selection of trainers.
Yes.
And if there is any form to preemptively evaluate the trainer's quality, right?
Okay, the quality assurance, yeah, generally.
Okay. So because this was the first year we have implemented this activity, and the fact that in our medical education department, me and my colleague are respectively from the 5th and 4th medical years, which are the years from which trainers are selected, we approach the students which are known to be more communicative and that would have the profile to be a trainer, and we directly invited them, we explained them the activity and asked them if they were interested in helping their colleagues.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Zain, and thank you so much for your answer. Moving on to Mustafa.
Yes. Yes, again, thank you very much. Actually, I had a similar question to Zain's, but since it's answered, I'm going to ask a new question. It's you have set a target for your project, and how were you able to reach your target and to reach your target audience? I mean, like to the students and the trainers, like for both trainees and the trainers, how were you able to promote your activity and how were you able to reach out to them?
Okay, that's actually a really nice question. So I think I have already answered the part of the question that relates to trainers, correct? So when it comes to trainees, they start going to the hospital and facing clinical interview and overall clinical challenges in the 3rd year. So students are mostly preoccupied. So we designed the activity and we promoted the activity in our social media. And we also approached the student that is responsible for the 3rd medical year and had him talk to his colleagues and promote the activity in such a way that would make them aware of the fact that it is really important for them to get a different approach when it comes to learning the clinical interview.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. Moving on to Michelle.
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation. So my question would be more on how would you ensure the sustainability of your activity, especially like motivating participants to actually join like every year, since it's usually the problem with activities. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's actually a really nice question. So, talking about sustainability, well, the activity is pretty much self-sustainable in the fact that the activity is cost-free. So for our organization, there is really no problem repeating the activity. When it comes to trainees, there will always be a need for students to learn clinical interview and clinical interview skills. So there will always be a need in the foreseeable future for students to engage, for trainees to engage in this activity. When it comes to trainers, the fact that trainees are on let's imagine these year's trainees that are currently on the 3rd medical year. They engage in the activity and they acted as trainees. And the fact that they participated as trainees will make them more likely to want to engage as a trainer when they get to their next years in the 4th and the 5th medical year.
Okay, so thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you so much for your answers. Moving on to the second presentation. So whenever you're ready, we're gonna start the time.
I'm ready. Am I audible?
Sorry, you're breaking up
Hello?
a little bit. Yes, you're audible now.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
All right. You can start the timer. Hello, everyone. This is Manu Dar, the activity coordinator and presenter for the activity Break the Silence from IFMSA Pakistan SMC-LC. This is a great opportunity to represent my NMO IFMSA Pakistan at the 2nd Rex Crossley Awards. Thank you. Talking about my activity, we are no longer stranger to child abuse and sexual harassment. But the question was, are the victims ever aware? To bring this evil to light, we joined hands with Ms. Nausheen Iftikhar, a member of National Assembly in Pakistan, currently designated as Parliamentary Secretary for Human Rights. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, well, that's me. Could you please move forward to the next slide? Yes, talking about the activity design and implementation, I'll move forward to the problem statement quickly. Next slide. According to Dawn News, in September 2021, 8 children are abused every day in Pakistan, out of which 51% are girls and 49% are boys. Unawareness in terms of education and capacity building of both the children and parents about this grave situation is the root cause. So moving forward towards the vision, next slide. To the next slide. Hussain, audible? Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Move forward to the goals, please. Next slide.
Yes, I have already moved to the next slide. I paused the timer in case you have a connection issue.
Could you please move to the 3rd slide, that is goals?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So whenever you're ready,
start
I'm going to
again.
resume the timer. Yes.
I am ready. Our goal was to you can start the timer. Our goal was to increase the awareness among students about sexual abuse and minimizing communication gap between parents and their children. Moving forward to the objectives, could you please move forward to the next slide? We had 2 objectives: organizing an awareness campaign about sexual abuse in 5 different schools that was 3 consecutive hours in 5 consecutive Saturdays. This was our first objective, and the second objective was to educate parents about the importance of talking to their children openly about sex education and sexual abuse during those 5 consecutive Saturdays, the sessions that we had. For the success indicators, the next slide, please. The first success indicator would be 80% students are able to differentiate between the good touch and bad touch. 80% can protect themselves from sexual abuse. And the second success indicator was 80% parents are able to understand the need of talking to their children, and they take an oath to be vigilant enough to protect their children. Thank you. Next slide. Our methodology. We started from opening calls for volunteers and OCs, taking a psychologist on board, uploading digital posters, taking IFMSA trainers on board, dividing the team into groups that would be present at the parents section, the primary school section, and the secondary school section. Moving forward towards the pre-evaluation part, we had basically, next slide, please. Basically, evaluation and impact has been divided into pre-evaluation and post-evaluation. Could you please move forward? In pre-evaluation, we had stakeholder mapping, the SWOT analysis, the delegation grid, and the risk management analysis. Next slide. We had stakeholder mapping, that is high interest and high influence. As you can see, we had trainers, children, and the OC members. Whereas in the high influence and low interest areas, we had the MNA, the Member National Assembly, the school and college administration. And then when we did the SWOT analysis, next slide, our strengths were supportive administration, passionate OC, capacitated trainer, free transport. Our opportunities were government officials. Our weakness was we did not have any multimedia there. We had the unavailability of trainers on the we could have had the unavailability of trainers on the training day. Move forward to the post-evaluation. A number of participants, questionnaires, and feedback performance was our post-evaluation. Next slide, please. Impact, we had covered 2,000 children and 82 parents. 1,700 students were able to differentiate. 80 parents agreed with our ideology as well. Next slide. When I talk about the sustainability, we had follow-ups on the schools, and we targeted some set of students to check if the campaign sustained. We have plans to conduct the activity in the upcoming terms. We are going to spread it to more schools. Our outreach was 2,139 people, out of which 2,000 were children. Talking about our achievements in the next slide, we VPS newsletter in IFMSA Pakistan. We won the National Activities Fair, and IFMSA Pakistan, we got selected and presented in a local newspaper and the news channel. Also, we were mentioned in National General Assembly among the government officials, and we are enrolled as IFMSA programs nationally and internationally, as you can see mentioned in the slides. Please move forward.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and time is up. Would you like me to move to the last slide?
I have a few pictures as well. Yeah, we had a few pictures as well. Yeah, these were from our meetings with the Member National Assembly. This is my team. We worked together. This was the OC. Next slide, please. These are the children and the national MNM. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. Moving on to the judges, starting with Mustafa, then Michelle.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot for working on this project. So I believe that there has been many obstacles that came on the way working on such activities. So I want to know, like, what was the main obstacle that you faced, and how were you able to overcome that obstacle?
Thank you for your question. We had the support of our Member National Assembly and also the support of our college administration. They were very, very much helpful. They provided us with a free transport and everything that was required of them. They were even ready to give us sponsorships. So there was no such problem, other than there was just one issue, that we were threatened about the parents and the children paying attention to our activity and the project. But when we went there, it was no longer a threat, because they were very much involved. The parents were involved with us. We had a clinical psychologist there who was there to counsel them, and also we had a trained, well-capacitated OC team that was very much involved with the children, and the outcome was really good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mustafa, and thank you so much for your answer. Moving on to Michelle.
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation. So as we all know, like, sexual violence is really rampant, like, anywhere in the world. So my question would be, do you see any potential in your activity that you can broaden, like, maybe in other countries as well, or like partnering with any future stakeholders? And the second question would be, do you have a long-term plan for this activity?
Yes, thank you for the question. We are still in touch with the member National Assembly that was helping us throughout this activity. She still is in touch with us. We have the WhatsApp groups active till now. I think this will clarify your part of the question where you were asking that, do we still have the resources? Your other part was, do we have plans to continue the activity? Yes, we have our plans to continue this activity, and the member National Assembly from the government is very much interested, and she has been asking us to have more sessions all over Pakistan, and we will be continuing with our activity. What was the third part of your question? Sorry.
Do you have any long-term plans, and also do you have other future certain stakeholders in mind for this activity?
Other than this member National Assembly, we are currently working on our local level with some of the national member MNAs here who have already been in the government. Also, we have there is an SOS village. It is an NGO in Pakistan. It is also in touch with us. We are currently trying to have them on board. And I think that would be another great addition to this activity, because they work for the children's rights. This MNA, this member National Assembly that we already have, is also a human rights activist. And we will be having a collab soon with the SOS Village.
Okay, so thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you so much for your answer. Moving on to the third presentation.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha Serna, and I'm here in representation of AMEF Mexico, presenting to you the activity Healthy Mexico Project, also called in Spanish, Promesa Proyecto México Saludable. Next, please. As probably all of you know, COVID-19 affected the education of most students around the whole world, and Mexico was not the exception. One of the groups most affected during this period were health science students. As we know, during our students' years, one of the most important parts is the clinical practice. During the pandemic, health science students in Mexico were not able to attend hospital or clinics for almost 2 whole years. This has led to a large lag in the education of students, causing problems of students' confidence in their own education. In addition to this huge problem, the pandemic itself caused an oversaturation of health systems. And another study was conducted in Mexico, found out that 8.74 million patient visits were lost during this period. Next, please. So to try to innovate and give a solution to this problem is how Healthy Mexico Project began. Its main goal was to provide a clinical experience opportunity for health science students in Mexico through a health brigade, offering primary care and health promotion service to a vulnerable community. In this case, we had 2 main target groups: the general population who were receiving the healthcare and the health science students that were acquiring the clinical practice. Next, please. We established 6 objectives. Each of them you can see in the slide, and each objective had 1 or 2 indicators to make sure the activity had quality and impact we expected. Next, please. For the methodology of the activity, we started by looking for a community at risk. Then we carried out an exhaustive search in which we tried to inquire about the epidemiological data of the community, because it was important to have an overview before making the first visit. We did 2 visits to the community prior to the activity so that we could talk to the local community authorities and make sure everything was in the right track. We created a registered and filtered members to create a multidisciplinary brigade in which dentists, physical therapists, health educators, nurses, and doctors could provide services. We created an organizing committee to make sure every model had a graduated doctor as well as health science students in different college levels. Prior to the brigade, training was conducted on basic primary healthcare topics and as well as on communication and teamwork. The brigade was carried out over 2 days. On the first day, the students arrived by the afternoon, and during the rest of the day, we continued the capacitation. During the second and the third day, the actual brigade was taking place. visiting the patients, and they were attending to each model, and while they were waiting, we were giving talks on primary healthcare. Next, please. For the outcomes that we could obtain for the implementation of this activity, within the short term, the attention was given to 300 people in the community where the activity was carried out. This health attention included medical consultation, physical therapy, dental consultation, health promotion talks, comprehensive sexual health, STI testing such as HIV and syphilis, child development testings, and we provided medication for those conditions for which treatment we had available. Additionally, 100 health science students were given clinical experience, and the clinical experience ranged from patient treating, taking vital signs, to more specialized areas, such as the correct taking of samples for diagnostic tests. One of the most important results obtained was investigation carried out in the community's water, and the research that was conducted was able to link high levels of heavy metals in the water to high rates of kidney diseases in the population. Next, please. We think this is an innovative activity because while we were promoting clinical practice in health science students who were lagging behind due to COVID-19 pandemic, we were able to provide a service to a vulnerable community in the need of healthcare. Also, this is the first time that this methodology has been used. It is not the first time the activity has been carried out. That is why it was left as a manual, so it can be replied through the country and can continue with the transcendence and be sustainable. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation and amazing time management. Moving on to the judges, starting with Mustafa, then Zain.
Yes, thank you very much for your project. And first of all, I really like the name Promesa and the acronym of it. Secondly, my question is mostly towards so one of your target population is the healthcare students, and you're through your project, you're also giving them an opportunity to learn and to get experience. So my question is, how are you going to get benefit from the benefit of the? How are you going to get benefit from the experience of these health students, so that in the future they can also participate as a supervisor within these projects in order to make the project more sustainable? Let me know if the question was clear.
Yes, it was clear. Thank you very much. So basically what we tried to do is we continue to have the communication with the students that were able to participate during the first brigade. Actually, it was really helpful because since the activity has been carried out more times in the past, also had students that were like during the first promesas here implemented and helped doctors and also provided their practice and tips to all the students that were here. So basically what we did was to keep communication to be able to invite them to more brigades.
Okay, so thank you so much for your answer. Moving on to Zain.
Thank you. Congratulations on your activity. My question is that you mentioned that this activity has happened before. So I want to ask you about the evaluation methods, if you did any before or after each activity, and also if there is any handover process, and also how are you planning or how are you using and implementing the feedback and everything you get from evaluation into developing the next version of this activity in your NMO?
Thank you very much for your question. So yes, we had evaluation methods, and one of the most that was really important was the qualitative methods we use specifically for the health science students. So we did some interviews with participants that were already in the brigade to get some feedback, and this feedback was implemented to the manual we have, like it's all the explanation of how you should do the activity. And this is really helpful when you give the handover and the local officers want to create this activity, they can use this as a base. And this manual is actually annually or 2 years. Every 2 years, we try to actualize to make sure all of this data that we are obtaining is implemented there.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you so much for your presentation and your answers. Moving on to the next presentation. Whenever you're ready, I'm going to start the timer.
Okay. So, hello everyone, my name is Szanta Zawadzka, and I have an honor to present the project Health Under Control by IFMSA Poland, which is our biggest prophylactic action, which takes place twice a year. Next, please. Who am I? I am this year activity coordinator devoted to fighting for better health, who is also in love with non-communicable diseases. Next, please. Our project has been carried out for 12 years. We've already managed to have 24 editions in 19 local committees. We engaged more than 1,000 volunteers and reached more than 10,000 of beneficiaries. Next, please. Our main locations are shopping malls. Why? The answer is quite simple. We are still battling institutional healthcare-related crises related to the lack of appropriate funding for screening programs, lack of health awareness across all social levels, and long waiting times for medical interventions. So what we want to do is actively reach all our target groups with our action. The easiest way to do so is to go to the shopping centers where we can meet all of them and where they usually spend their Saturdays and take care of their health without expecting their additional effort. Next, please. What are our target groups? The elderly. Our main goal is to check their blood glucose and take blood pressure measurements. For the young adults, we offer mental health first aid. And for children, we prepare teddy bear hospital, where through playing with them and their teddy bears, we fight the fear of white coat. There are also CPR lessons for everyone. Next one. Our vision is a world in which every individual is guaranteed universal screening programs for non-communicable diseases and is empowered to take control over their health. And our mission is to provide basic health screening to individuals who would not otherwise be able to get diagnosed early enough to treat their NCDs and live a healthy life. Next one, please. Of course, Health Under Control is about the people, so we also, you wouldn't do that without our volunteers who are medical students, preclinical and clinical ones who are trained prior to the activity, and they manage educational and prophylactic stalls for the duration of Saturday's event. Next one, please. Our objectives are to educate at least 200 individuals about the importance of breast cancer, self-screening, and we use specialized phantoms during each edition. We want to test at least 500 individuals for blood serum glucose during each edition, and to test at least 600 individuals for hypertension, and to educate at least 200 individuals about health options available for people with mental health struggles during each edition of the activity. Next one, please. What is so unique about us that we not only concentrate on physical health as we did in the past, but we adjust our project so we also do not forget about mental health or climate change and its impact on health in the present times. Next one, please. We exceed the indicators by a large percentage, which inspires us to set even higher goals for ourselves. The next one, please. And thank you for your attention. I would be really happy to answer all your questions.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your amazing time management. Moving on to Michelle, then Zane.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And it's really fascinating to hear that your activity has been running for 12 years now in, I would say, Poland. I guess my question would be, what is your future, like, what is the activities like future plan after the 12 years? So, yeah.
Okay. As I mentioned, we try to adjust our project to all the new factors that are around us. We would really like to have definitely more volunteers because we still need more of them. What is also really important for us to find new locations, maybe to reach people not only in the biggest cities as we do now, because now we are mostly in the biggest city in Poland, where are like the huge shopping malls. We would like to, as it's a cost-free activity, we have to find some sources of funding. And we would really like to focus not only on physical health, but also on the other things. We would also like to collaborate with medical companies and maybe engaged in e-health initiatives. So yeah, that's our plan for the future.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to Zain.
Hello, congratulations on your presentation and activity. Actually, I love this sort of activities because this reminds me of my early days in my NMO. My only question is that, do you have any specific place or a general resources center for the content that the members will be giving to the population? Like, we are dealing with sensitive medical information. Do we have a streamlined, unified resource that all the participants will be giving to the general population, or it will be just depending on their medical knowledge?
No. So yes, as it was in the presentation, everyone is trained prior to the activity, and as a national team, we give recommendations to all the people who are engaged in carrying out our Health Under Control project. So we train everyone in taking blood pressure measurements or blood glucose. Our local public health officers are responsible for quality assurance, and the national team conducts evaluation. And when it comes to mental health, as it's quite a sensitive part, everyone who talks about it has a course on psychological first help.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for your presentation and your answers. We have conducted 4 presentations. So now we're moving on to a 10-minute break where we have Mikolaj present to us a little tips and tricks on what we shouldn't do while enrolling in activity. So Mikolaj, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Hussam. Yes, my name is Mikołaj Patalank. I'm the program coordinator for environment and health. And it's the second time that I have the privilege of addressing both the RCA, like the selected activities, the top 1% of all activities enrolled, because yes, we have hundreds of enrollments each year. So being in the 8 selected activities, like that's the ultimate prize already. So whether you win, whether you don't win, you won anyway, because you are the top of the impact that our NMOs have on the communities that they serve. As a program coordinator, I've learned the hard way that it's very important to have contact, to continuously be in contact with activity coordinators, because the NMOs vary in terms of the quality of the handover when it comes, especially when it comes to enrollment, because all the national skills, all the national knowledge in the handover, mostly is being given each year. But sadly, we see that sometimes not every national officer, not every new activity coordinator feels confident in talking to the DPC and keeping up the spirit of enrollment in their NMOs. So today, I would like to inspire those who are already experienced and to teach maybe something to those who are just starting, to those who are watching us live on YouTube, who are starting the joy and the adventure of enrolling activities. Today, I would like to highlight a few points where many activity coordinators made some mistakes. And obviously, it gives them some additional workload because they need to resubmit their activity. So why not do everything perfect at first attempt? And next slide, please. Thank you. The enrollment obviously starts with the candidature form, and if you think that it's the easiest way, it's the easiest part of it, because it doesn't need any description. It doesn't need to be worked on for hours, just like enrollments do. It's not true, because I've seen so many mistakes on candidature forms that necessitated my lack of approval of this of the enrollments, because on the formal side, it's very important that each and every part of the candidature form is filled in properly. Obviously, we need to choose an IFMSA program, and it's one or two, as I will speak about a little bit later. The first point where so many NMOs have made mistakes is the name of the activity, because when you provide the name of the activity, you need to name it in English. If you want to have a part which is in your local language, obviously it's possible. But even if you provide two titles like hyphens, please make sure that it's in the Latin script, because we won't be able to process the activity name in any other alphabet. Then please provide the full name of the activity coordinator. Many mistakes come with the signature. The person who's signing the document must be the NMO president or the NMO representative. And also the name that has to be provided in the lower bar needs to be the name of the person signing and not the name of the person who's the activity coordinator. Like, we don't repeat the AC's name. So please make sure, because so many people have done that, and sadly I had to contact them too, so that they could provide another CF. Yes, and also you need to name the NMO or the NMOs who are working on the activity, and please never forget to name all of them. Usually there's one, but sometimes 2 or 3. Please name them in the candidature form for it to be valid, because it needs to be the same as indicated in the enrollment form. Next slide. Thank you. Another thing which happens most often in November, December, at the very start of the term, but later on it also could happen, that the CF, which is provided to us as program coordinators, is not valid, not because of its content, but because you use an incorrect template. For example, a template from a term ago or 2 terms ago, the one that maybe you got from in your handover that there is on your NPO or other standing committee officer Google Drive. Again, it needs to be, for it to be valid, the template needs to be from the term in which you enroll the activity. So if you're struggling to find it, you can contact any program coordinator. But before you do that, please try to find in your email, if you subscribe to the IFMSA general mailing group, please try to find the email from the Vice President for Activities, an email which is always welcoming everyone at the start of the enrolling term, which happens about early November. When it starts, then you will find all the necessary links, among them also the link to the current template. Next slide. When you start filling in the enrollment form, you will have a question about the level that your activity is implemented on. Whereas local and national, these terms are not confused. there is much confusion with the terms regional and international. For an AC who's not working in IFMSA, who doesn't really know all the definitions, and it's not like obvious to them, sometimes it's being confused. So in IFMSA, the difference between regional and international is that the regional one, the regional activity, is an activity which is performed by more than one NMO, but all of the NMOs involved are from the same region. Whereas an international activity is an activity where there is more than one NMO, but from all the NMOs, they come from more than one region. Next slide. Thank you. The temporal layout, that's also been a point where I've had to contact the ACs, and other PCs have done that as well. There's a question about the temporal layout means what's the position of your activity in the past, present, and future. So the first option in this question is the first time activity. And obviously, if you're doing an activity for the first time, it seems like the obvious choice. But sadly, it's not, because the first time activity in that sense means that the activity has been performed or is being performed, because you can also enroll in activity which is ongoing. And we encourage any kind of enrollment. And if the activity has not been ended at the time of enrollment, we also provide help along the way. So the first time activity is an activity which has been implemented or is being implemented. But you don't have clear plans for it to continue in the future, so that you have a campaign, it ends, and maybe you will repeat it, but you can't provide any reasoning for that as of now, and you don't have clear plans for its continuation. But if you, for example, if you have the first edition of an activity and you are almost certain that you will continue it, it's better to enroll the activity as the continuous activity. That's why is this difference important? Because the first time activity you will only be able to report it once. So you enroll it, then you gather all the impact, you do the evaluation, and then you report it. And we know, and we as PCs get the information to include it in the IFMSA impact in the program's impact report. But if you report it as the continuous activity, you will be able to report it each and every year for as long as you wish. If you choose the option of the continuous activity, you are again faced with a choice between the first time enrollment and enrolling again. So the question that I always get is, what's the difference between those two, and why should I enroll again? You could enroll again if the objectives, if the methodology, if the evaluation of activity changes so substantially that you think that the previous indicators do not allow you to provide clear impact report to us in the report form. So if you're unsure which option to choose, if you're unsure whether your activity requires a re-enrollment, you can contact your PC. Next slide. What is a replicating activity? Again, if you're inspired by any sort of activity which you see anywhere, you can contact the activity coordinator in that country or the PC, and we can facilitate the contact. And you are able to repeat the activity, to copy it in a legal way, with adjustments to best serve your community. So then you will inform us that, okay, this project happened in, I don't know, in Mexico, and I'm in Poland, so I want to create something similar. Again, contact your PC if you're unsure. Next slide. If you're unsure which program to choose, you can always go to ifmsa.org, check the program proposals, check the focus areas, and decide for yourself. But if you're still unsure, and it happens with a tiny minority of projects, then contact any PC that you think fits your activity best. And we will be able to collaborate between ourselves within the programs team and come up with the answer of which program fits your activity best. You can choose the maximum of 2 programs. However, we encourage you to choose one program. However, there is also a tiny minority of projects which do require two. For example, if your activity is about climate change and sexual and reproductive health and rights, it's obvious your activity will have to be curated by two PCs. Next slide, please. Focus areas. Again, we encourage you to choose as few as possible. We want to have the clearest view possible on what your activity needs and what kind of impact you're creating. So please try to, if you're unsure, please name, for example, 2 or 3, and we as PCs in our feedback to you as the AC will provide information on whether we feel like it doesn't really match. Next slide. With the objectives and indicators, please refer to the SMART objective model. And there is also an IFMSA toolkit, which is devoted to creating objectives and to activity management. And I do encourage you to take a look. So I think it's all from me. Thank you again for giving me that opportunity. And a quick reminder: you can still you can't report anymore, but you still can enroll your activities through the forum. So I do encourage you to contact any PC. You can contact me with your activity management. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mikolaj, for a pretty informative and elaborative way of explaining what an activity coordinator should not do while enrollment and what should they do, or how can they do it correctly. I hope everyone has learned and enjoyed this experience, especially the live audience on YouTube. And now we are continuing back with the activity presentation. I just need to confirm via chat if the judges and the last 4 presenters are in here. Please write one in the chat. Okay, perfect.
Okay, can I start now?
Yes, whenever you're ready. The mic is yours.
Okay, greetings everyone from every side of the world. My name is Virapat Ngalurung. I'm external coordinator of our Priority Present project Undergao. Next slide, please. Undergao, as I say, is supervised under SCOME or Standing Committee of Medical Education Thailand. So let's get started. Next slide, please. Okay, for activity design, in recent years, medical students have encountered several issues within the medical school, like, depression, inappropriate grading system, or student suicide, stress, and mental health problems, etc. These are just some examples of the obstacles they might have experienced so far so long. With concern of these counterparts, we decided to create an Instagram account where the issue experienced in the medical society could be freely and publicly voiced. We aim to then lead this as a social awareness movement driven by the medical students who have been inspired by attending or participating in our activity, and also encouraging other students to join in and speak up about the problems in Thai medical education system, especially for those who have experienced it directly. Next. Oh, sorry, just that. Evaluation for the successful indicator, we evaluate from number of followers on our Instagram account, especially Thai medical students. And for the quantity of the engagement, we would like to gain our follower to 1,000 followers within 5 months, 2,000 likes, 100 comments, and also gain 10,000 account reaches. As of today, we have 681 followers, around 18,000. Next slide, please. Around 18,000 total account reaches, around 1,800 total shares, and the last one, around 3,400 total likes. Not only that, we also launched an anonymous webinar in order to engage the discussion in any questionable topics with no prejudice on any point of opinions, to encourage our participants to speak directly about the problems that they, or you may say we, have been confronted with. Next slide, please. For the implementation, underground marks the beginning for becoming aware of the importance of speaking up about issues in Thai medical society. We encourage and support each medical school in Thailand to notice the issues and listen to what medical students have to say about them. In addition, we have also interviewed the Committee of the Medical Council of Thailand and voiced opinions for resolving the issues. Okay, therefore, every post that we have published is the representative spokesperson for all Thai medical students. Next slide, please. Not only about the medical education, but we also concerned about students' physical and mental health as well. Next slide, please. Moreover, Underground not only published the medical society issue, but also aim to encourage the student voice to be real in the medical society, leading to the better and efficient improvement. Okay, as of today, the issue that we have published to our Instagram page have not yet been resolved. We are just a small group of students who have stepped up to call out on these issues to create an awareness in society. If the issues still persist, we shall still continue to do what we are doing now until the issue in the Thailand or in the Thai medical society are settled. In conclusion, despite this initiative being a soft power, it is an important first step, especially in the Thai society where people, are hesitant to call out about the problems. This first step in acknowledging the problems and speaking up about them will lead us to a change for the better in the Thai medical society. Thank you for your attention. Time for the Q&A, please.
Thank you so much for your presentation and finishing on time. Moving on to questions. We have Mustafa and Michelle. Mustafa first, the mic is yours.
Yes, thank you very much for working on this valuable topic. So my question here is that how have you distributed your target audience? Like, who are your specific target audience, and how are you reaching out to them? Like, because from what I saw, it's mainly through social media, but I believe there could be other important target audiences when it comes to this topic. Like, it could be also administrators or like people working within the medical education system. So how are you trying to also target those, and are you trying to go through any other methods other than social media and campaigning to target and to address these issues?
Okay, let me clarify it first for confirmation about your question about how we select our target, right? And also about the method to expose this project to the citizen or the medical or anyone concerned, right? Am I understand your question correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. For selection, firstly, we aim for the medical student first, mainly preclinical study, and then we try to extend our purpose into the clinical level. Yes, and about the method, we firstly choose the social media method like an Instagram account because it is very widespread on the social media. Yeah, and everyone like to play the Instagram, everyone know. Yeah, but actually we want to make another student from another field, like who is not the medical student, to learn and to recognize these kind of problems the medical student have been confronted with. Yeah, so we also try to plan about the next plan of public relation, like go to the high school or any other medical school or university as well. Yeah. And also we also got the feedback, yeah, and we try to adjust it to make it better.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving now to Michelle. The mic is yours.
Thank you so much for your presentation and especially for highlighting this problem that's really relevant to not only to Thailand but also to every country. I guess my question would be, since you have mentioned that you guys got feedback, what are your future plans for this activity? And especially do you have any plans on interacting with important stakeholders that would maybe take action on some of the medical students pleas or comments with regards to your medical society?
Okay, let me clarify the question briefly. When let's say that one medical student wants to us in the project underground, and what will we do next, right? Am I correct? Am I understanding correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's say that nowadays we also have to have discussion with the higher council, the organization in Thailand is called the Medical Council of Thailand. Yeah. We also discuss about the problem that medical students have been confronted with in order to expand the problem and the resolution, because we try to solving the problem from the bottom to top. Yeah. And yeah, and also that is just the receiving, that is the receiving way of the problem, they voice to us. Not only that, we also make the Google form or any survey to the medical student as well, if they have any problem, so that they can freely write it down on the Google form that if any problem they have been confronted. Yeah.
Thank you
and
so
also
much.
And also we can for the first, we have a phase of our project, right? For the first phase of our project, we just launched the project, so nothing much just only for the post, but for this phase and so on, we plan to write some statement to send it to the concerned organization. Yeah, and also collab with another university to encourage student voice as well. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much for your presentation and your answers. Moving on to the next presentation. Whenever you're ready, the mic is yours.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, you can start the time now. Good day, everyone. My name is Aisha Abdulmajid. I'm from NIMSA, Nigeria, and I'll be presenting what I take as an impactful activity, the Pad-Up Drive. Next slide, please. As a form of introduction, this initiative is of that of the NIMSA Nigeria Foundation, a philanthropic arm of the NMO, which took place between the 1st of May till the 5th of June, approximately a month and a few days. It took place in the form of a campaign at the national level of the NMO, with up to add to the progress being made to the SDG 1, no poverty, and SDG 3. Due to the level of impact we envisioned, we partnered with another NGO here in Nigeria and enrolled under the IFMSA Realizing SRHR programs. Next slide, please. So why Pad-Up Drive? I'm sure a few of us here would have heard the tag that Nigeria is the giant of Africa. Well, if you ask me if that is true, I'll say no, because for a country that is the giant, you'd expect that something as basic as sanitary pads should be made affordable to young girls. According to UNICEF, 1 in 10 African girls still miss school due to issues relating to menstrual cycle. Some of the most important causes are period poverty and ignorance. Period poverty is just an issue that affects females who do not have access to sanitary items. Period poverty in Nigeria is pretty worse because of the high taxation placed on different sanitary items. A pack of sanitary pad costs over $1. Next slide, please. For an average Nigerian below the poverty line, and approximately 83 million of Nigerians lie in this group that earn less than $1, barely enough to even feed the family. Investing in proper sanitary products isn't an option, especially when they have like some unhygienic method that they believe is the best for them. So girls end up using tampons, pad for a very long time, up to a day for some, and some even opt for dirty clothes, leaves, tissue, and some other unhygienic items, risking them and predisposing them to different health conditions. Furthermore, education of girls on menstruation and other related topics is compromised by different traditional and cultural beliefs, making these girls go out and hear different false information and taking it to heart, believing that's the best and that's the truth about menstruation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, here we have our goals and indicators of success. We sought to distribute free sanitary products to girls. We sought to increase the knowledge of medical students and general public on menstruation and period poverty. So success for these goals would mean that we're able to distribute at least 2,000 free sanitary pads. Also, we're able to educate at least 5,000 secondary school students across Nigeria. At least 50% of our infographics were shared across the across social media. 200 reach and impression across all of our social media platforms. And for the quiz that was released, we are looking forward to having at least 200 people take the online quiz and have 60% of them score above 40 in the quiz. Please, the next slide. Okay, so for our target group, we targeted senior secondary school students across Nigeria, and we directly plan to benefit teenage girls in secondary school across Nigeria. Next slide, please. Indirectly, we hope to have medical students benefit from this program. We hope to have like male and non-teenage girls also benefit from it. Family members of those girls and the school administrators. As you can see, we have like pictures of medical students and some school administrators also. The next slide, please. The next slide is talking about our activity design, and it took place in 3 phases. We have the planning phase, the implementation, and the evaluation phase. The next slide, please. This is our planning phase. For the evaluation phase now, the implementation phase had the online campaign and we had the physical campaign. For the online campaign, we had release of series of infographic as well as release of a link to online quiz. The next slide, please. The physical campaign took place in secondary schools, 12 secondary schools across Nigeria, educating girls and distributing free sanitary pads to them. The next slide, please. Okay, here we have photo albums of different schools that we visited. The next slide, thank you. So this was our evaluation and reporting plans, and we monitored our insight across social media. We analyzed the quiz and some other things as you can see on the slide. The next slide, please. Next slide.
Okay, so you want me to move to the last slide?
Yes, you can move to the next and to the last slide.
Okay.
For the outcomes, I'll talk about the outcomes. We're able to have we're able to reach 5,000 interactions across social media. We had 198 people fill the questionnaires. 12 secondary schools were visited across 12 states in Nigeria. We had 3,728 girls educated and 2,430 sanitary pads also distributed. Then we faced some challenges during the process. We had like challenge
Okay.
of cultural belief. We had like students undergoing
the time is up.
tests.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Moving on to the judges, starting with Michelle.
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation and for highlighting a very important topic, which is like hygiene, and not only talking to teenage girls, but also boys and their family members. So this is a really promising activity. So I guess my question would be, how, like, do you have any follow-up plans since you've mentioned that you had some feedback evaluation? So how would you follow up on that? And also, how do you guys plan on making this activity more sustainable in the future?
Okay, please, can you go to the second to the last slide? Thank you. So we intend to make it an annual activity in the NMO under the NIMSA Foundation. And in doing that, I think the first step we took after the activity was to reach out to some of the major stakeholders in the country, like government officials, different medical association bodies, and to give them like a report of the activity and how impactful it can be if they decide to invest in it. So we are looking at collaborating with some of these bodies to like making it sustainable and carry out even a bigger activity next year. Also, our partner was Moms and Babies Up. We also submitted our report to them, and we are in the process of discussing with them looking at possibility of a long-term partnership with them. And aside from that, we are actively applying for grants. We successfully applied for one, a Nigerian youth grant, with the hope of investing whatever it is we get there into the activity also next year. And the second grant is that of IFMSA, which I'm sure most of us know. Yeah. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to Zain.
Hi, congratulations on your activity. It's such sad that this huge number of women can't have the accessibility to such important hygiene methods, but there is hope, and I'm so happy seeing you and your peers are working on achieving such an important goal. My main question is that I noticed that there was a slide in your presentation about the funding or how you are managing to get the money in order to buy all these pads. But I think we skipped it throughout the way of the presentation. So can you elaborate to me, how did you manage to get all these numbers of sanitary equipments?
Yes, I can do. Can I answer now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we started with a crowdfunder. We opened it up to general public to contribute whether sanitary items or cash. So we are able to raise a little from that. Then we took the second stage of reaching out to potential sponsors, and we didn't get so many because it's a first-time event, and I understand their doubt, but we got another foundation, Moms and Babies Up Foundation. They also for maternal and child health issue in Nigeria. So they funded most of the event for us. Then we had like our own team members also raise from like our personal finances to like add to it and just make it beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for the presentation and for your answer. Moving on to the next activity. Whenever you're ready, the mic is yours.
Thank you. So I'm going to start presenting. This activity is Young People Listen, an activity made by FMC Brazil Unifor and presented by me, Carolina Padanelli. You can move to the next slide. Psychic suffering led 306 people from Ceará to commit suicide between January and July 2020. Among the causes of psychic suffering is the pandemic, which has brought up psychological aspects hitherto minimized. Anxiety crisis, loss of loved ones, and fear of death were some types of suffering faced. Therefore, in order to help young people to go through this pandemic reality in a more peaceful way, the project Young People Listen was created. Higher rates of psychological distress in relation to the general population, such as burnout, diagnosed mental illness, suicidal ideation, and suicide attempt are pointed out in different studies with medical students in Brazil and worldwide. Can move to the next slide. So the goal of this project is to promote empathic listening to the young participants during the pandemic with the aim of ensuring the safe space for expressing their feelings and anxieties. You can move to the next slide. And the objectives are to assist 60 young adults aged between 17 and 27 to deal with the psychological challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and secondary impacts through empathic listening by virtual means, to promote among the students who participate in the project psychic tranquility by talking about their anxieties, and to improve listening techniques among volunteers to adapt into the virtual environment. Next slide, please. And the methodology was: the project volunteers received on April 15, 2020, a 3-hour training course to learn about theoretical concepts and the execution of the technique of empathic listening based on Jungian principles. The project was carried out with physiologists and coordinator of the Community of Actions for Redesigning Models of Existence and Suicide Prevention, Carmen's Institute. In May, the project began. Scheduling the listening was done via Instagram, where the project was also publicized, and the listening was carried out by video call on the Google Meet platform, lasting 60 minutes and always in pairs of volunteers. Next slide, please. Listening members were allocated for listening times a week spread over 2 days. It's important to, you can move to the next slide. These were the coordinator of the activity. And it's important to point out that, according to Jung, this time is the best possible expression of something unknown, and it represents true images and experience that include conscious and unconscious aspects. When starting to listen, the volunteers introduced themselves to the participants and made room for him to externalize his thoughts and feelings. Criticism, suggestions, or any speech of religious nature were strictly prohibited during the listening, which has no psychotherapeutic character. After the dissertation, the listeners then created a symbol, mental image, of some scene that could represent the participant's moment, feeling, or thoughts, and if the participant agreed that the image presented was in line with what was described, the participant himself completed and detailed the image in question. Okay, move to the next slide. So, about the outcomes, the impact measurement was performed using a satisfaction form at the end of each listening. Impact estimate was not mandatory, and it aimed to be answered by those who felt comfortable. In total, the project heard 68 people during the 6 months. 40 people respond to the impact estimate, represents 58% of the total number of people heard by the project, and the feedback was very positive. 85% was very happy to describe their empathic listening and scheduling process. In the comment section, 28 people decided to leave a comment. Most praised the initiative, some praised mainly the listeners who listened to them, and some were suggestions. One said, "I love it, it's a fantastic idea, and I felt really comfortable talking. Congratulations." The results show a great approval of the project by the people heard, demonstrating the positive effect of empathic listening. Can move to the next slide. So the conclusion is, after the 6 months of the project, it's possible to say that it was a great of benefit to those who had the opportunity to participate. In fact, the activity was publicized and published in major newspapers with the headlines showing the image. Project offers virtual meetings for those who need to talk. And below, medical students from Ceará hold virtual meetings to listen to young people during isolation. A safe space was created within the listening environment, making the experience enriching both for those who could be heard and for those who were responsible for listening. So we'll come up to the next slide. So thank you, and I'm here for your doubts.
Thank you for the amazing time management. Moving on to Mustafa for the question.
Yes, Thank you very much for working on this beautiful project. My question is regarding the volunteers that you have selected to talk to these young people. So on which criteria have you selected them, and how were you able to make sure that they have the right empathetic tools to be able to have a session with these young people?
Okay, thank you for your question. So we made a form so they could make a motivation letter that who would read these letters were the coordinators of the committee. So there was selection people to participate, and who had the most better motivation letter would be selected for this activity. And so they had this training course with the coordinator of Carmen's Institute which was already doing this work with an adult audience. So thinking about the demand of young people, Professor Francisco, who is the coordinator of this institute, training the young coordinators of the activity to replicate the project for a young audience. So they were very trained to be listening to the people who was wanting to be heard.
Thank you so much. Moving on to Zain.
Congratulations on your activity. My question is very simple. Do you have any follow-up plans, and also do you have any future plans for the activity, like follow-up for what already have happened, and any future plans or long-term goals related to this activity?
Yes, thank you for your question. In fact, in Brazil, we have a month focused on promoting the importance of mental health, called Yellow September. And this year, based on this activity, we want to carry out an action that involves several committees. We have more than 235 committees in FMSA Brazil, and that promote the importance of mental health among the students, and that as a result, they are able to pass this importance to the community as well. So we want to make this project a little bigger. We know that now we are not in we don't need to be in this, the pandemic is not really going on with this online process, so we can do presential things now, and we really want to make this a bigger thing in FMSA Brazil.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation and for your answers. Moving on to the final presentation we have today. Whenever you're ready, the mic is yours.
Okay, just to confirm that I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Amazing. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Ali Slim from Lamsik, Lebanon, and today I will be speaking on for the children of my country bearing the consequences of the economic collapse. Next slide, please. So why child protection and why now? Lebanon's ongoing economic collapse had near irreversible consequences on critical sectors of the economy, with severe aftermaths among Lebanon's most vulnerable groups, including children of different backgrounds. Next slide, please. So UNICEF has actually warned of an increasing dropout of school for Lebanese children, with enrollment rate dropping from 60% to 43% in just 1 year. While another report cautioned that 1 in 2 children were at serious risk of physical, emotional, and sexual violence, with 1.8 million children in the country now experiencing multidimensional poverty. In light of these numbers, we drafted our goals and objectives to launch our National Child Protection Campaign, or NCPC. Next slide, please. So for our first goal, it was to increase the knowledge on responding to child abuse among workers from at least 2 professional fields in close contact with children. Next slide. For that, we aim to increase knowledge on the management of child abuse among medical students, hold talks on child abuse for healthcare workers, and train public school teachers on the recognition of child abuse. Next slide. So for our second goal, we aim to actually improve social skills, teach self-expression, and increase resilience against violence for at least 25 refugee children younger than 14 years of age in the greater Beirut area. Next slide, please. To achieve that, we actually intended to guide volunteers to provide psychosocial support sessions, deliver community-based and focused psychosocial support sessions against violence, and deliver sessions about violence management and prevention to refugee caregivers. Next slide. third goal aimed to secure winter clothes for at least 30 vulnerable children, adolescents, and refugees living below the poverty line in the greater Beirut area before the end of January 2022. Next slide, please. And to do that, we actually aim to coordinate a children-focused cloth drive with different universities and collaborate with different student societies. Next slide, please. So for our fourth goal, we intended to prevent the dropout of at least 30 public school students from at least 5 public schools in the greater Beirut area for the academic year 2022-2023. And for that, next slide, please. This was intended through organizing an international fundraiser for education relief and setting a fair strategy for the distribution of the funds with the Ministry of Education and Public Schools. Next slide, please. So each objective had multiple indicators of success, which we aim to compare to the outcomes when we're done in order to evaluate our work and our impact. And you can see the indicators of success in this slide. Next slide, please. So the target group actually included refugee children, teachers, healthcare workers, and medical students. Next slide. And the beneficiaries were the target groups in addition to children and youth in general, refugees, and the general population. Next slide, please. So here are some of our few externals. Notably, we worked with UNICEF, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Social Affairs, and of course, IFMSA. Next slide, please. The next few slides are going to be highlighting the methodologies that we use for the different activities within the campaign, including the OC formation, contacting relevant externals, proceeding with the implementation phase, evaluation, and assessment. Next slide, please. So this is for the hospital chapter. Next slide. An hour to empower for psychosocial support activity. And next slide, the education relief fund. So next slide, please. So the evaluation actually consists of qualitative and quantitative parts, including activity and evaluation reports, pre and post evaluation feedback forms, and informal feedback. Next slide, please. So for the share the news about child abuse, the outcomes were as followed. 28 medical students participated in the training of trainers. We have now in process the first child abuse LAMSIC trainer school in process. 92% at least of participants provided positive feedback, and there was around a 25 increase in knowledge. Next slide, please. For the hospital chapter of the activity, we were able to reach over 140 participants across 3 hospitals in Lebanon, around 40% of which were doctors and other healthcare workers, and we're currently in talks with other 3 hospitals. Next slide, please. For our ongoing An Hour to Empower, we garnered over 25 volunteers delivering and assisting in sessions. We delivered over 15 community-based sessions to 46 refugee children and 14 focus sessions to 30 children, with 8 delivered sessions to caregivers. Next slide, please. Cloth drive, we were able to collect 25 boxes of winter clothes. The donations will benefited 45 children and more. Next slide. And we were able to gather around $750 for the education relief fund, which will be covering over 70 students' tuitions and students who are at risk of dropout. And we have already the Ministry of Education on board. Final slide. Next slide, please. So this is only the beginning. We're expanding more and more the activity. We're signing MOUs with the different externals, and we're launching campaigns in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, and drafting also a national policy document on child marriage in Lebanon soon.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. We're going to take questions. First of all, Mustafa, you have the mic.
Yes, thank you very much for your work and efforts. My question is, can you elaborate a bit on the timeline of the implementation of this project, and also how much percentage of your goals have you achieved?
Okay, so basically this activity started at the beginning of the term, and I aim to make it a long-term campaign where we gathered, where we had a holistic campaign tackling child abuse and child protection. So we started with the cloth drive within the winter term. And we started with the training of trainers around January, where we trained LAMSIC members and all. Then we moved on to the hospital chapter, where the trainers, LAMSIC members who got trained on child abuse were giving hospital sessions throughout the months of February to March. During that time, we moved into calling for a small working group for the education relief fund in order to set the strategy and contact the relevant ministries and all. And then we moved on to the psychosocial support, activity that is still ongoing. When it comes to the objectives that we have achieved, the Christmas cloth drive, we have achieved its objective and has been completed. The psychosocial support, we have achieved their objectives and we're still going on with the activity. So we have surpassed the objectives that we have set already. For the education relief fund, the small working group is working for the next terms that are happening. So for the next academic year, for the hospital chapter of the Share the News about child abuse, where we did the 3 hospitals, but we're expanding to more. And we have training public school teachers. We have agreed with the ministry to start working on that, beginning with them with the next academic year, because now is summer break.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there any further questions? Okay, perfect. Okay, Michelle.
So thank you so much for such a structured and concise presentation. I guess my only question would be, what do you think was like one of your main obstacles in conducting this activity, and how would you follow up on that?
Okay, so I would say the main obstacle that we had as an organizing committee within conducting this activity is actually being able to reach high-end externals who we knew would be able to help, but because of the actually limited communication that we had with them, we had to try to reach different contacts and see who we can contact in order to get a contact within that organization. Example, UNICEF, example, Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Social Affairs. But however, after a lot of going around and talking around and seeing who we can contact and who is the right person to contact, we were finally able to start reaching agreements on the next points to expand and to ensure the sustainability of the activity for terms to come.
So thank you so much for your presentation and for your answers. We have reached the end of Rex Crossley after finalizing the presentation. If the judges have anything to add before the closing remarks, sorry. If not, we're going to move to the closing remarks. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the amazing activity coordinator worldwide who have submitted the 40 amazing applications. And I would like to thank the 8 finalists who have shown an amazing presentation, wonderful activity, and shown the world and shown everyone that medical students can have impact in their community, can make a change, and can make the change they want to see in the world. It's amazing to see that the world is recovering from post-pandemic and getting back to physical activities with such an amazing quality and such wonderful creativity and innovation. Then I would like to move and thank the program team for their work behind the scene, making it possible, making Rex Crossley possible, and shout out for Mikolaj for the preparation for the program promotion. And moving on to thanking the judges. I know they have a very busy schedule, so thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your amazing questions and making Rex Crossley possible. And finally, I would like to thank everyone who has joined us via the live stream. I hope you enjoyed watching the top activities from animals all over the world, and enjoyed the presentation and enjoyed the questions and answers. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a good day. Now we can